call this meeting to order. If all would rise, please, for pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we can just take a moment of silence for our troops who are serving overseas. Thank you. So we'll call our meeting of March 28th, 2018 to order. As had been requested at our last meeting, we have moved public participation to the start of the meeting. So we're going to start with our public participants, and the first participant is Mr. Marley.
And just to remind folks, it's 2 minutes. You'll get a 30-second warning, and you're supposed to direct it to the committee and not to anybody specifically, and stay away from personal attacks. Thanks.
Honorable member, Lawrence Public School is grateful, thankful to honorable members, honorable Commissioner Rally, thankful to honorable Mayor Rivera, and to all of you. Tonight, we the citizens are grateful that our Lawrence teachers, they have contract. This shows our appreciation and care toward our best teachers and the union. We are grateful to Honorable Frank McLaughlin for his awesome representation. If we summarize the last 6 years of Honorable Lawrence Public School Commissioner Bradley, in Lawrence was dedication, excellency of performance, and care about Lawrence and our children. We are responsible to continue the path of success for making the best public school as Honorable Commissioner Bradley. The accomplishment of the turnaround plan create the best public school in the nation, a budget that must be focused on the student, a school system that prepare the new generation or citizens for the best, most important advanced education. We cannot allow the success of Lawrence Public School end by departure of Honorable Commissioner Rally. We need to new leadership that continuously focus on our children. Lawrence Teacher Union must know we the citizens are behind them 100%. They are the most important reason for success of turnaround plan. Let's continue the success of Lawrence Public School, a best example of the problem.
30 seconds.
We need to continue the parental involvement to make family and our community active partner. Once again, thank you for showing support for our teachers union. When the teachers win, we all win. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next participant is Penny Strybell. Shebel.
My name is Henry Shebel, Greenfield Street, Lawrence, Mass. Good evening, Lawrence School Committee. Today I want to talk to you about some issues. First of all, I might say a new face to speak. And that may be part of my point tonight. First, I have a grandson that goes to the South Lawrence East School. I am here to speak on some issues I have come across with the safety and security at that building. About a month ago, the school called my son to pick up his son because he was sick. My son asked me if I could pick him up. I said, yes, I could, but I've never been there. Where do I go? My son told me, drive around the back of the building, up the ramp, ring the buzzer, security will let you in. I did that. I rang the buzzer, and in 3 seconds, I was inside that building with them not knowing who I was or what I was there for. Okay? Now, I said, once I got in the building, I noticed the auditorium on the left side of the door as I go in, with a couple of classrooms full of children in there. I continue down to the corridor, which I see a security desk. I go to the desk, tell him what I was there for, and he said, okay, sign in here, please. Then I asked where the nurse's office was. He instructed me to the left, 3 doors down on the right. I get my grandson, sign out, walk by the auditorium with the kids, with the kids still there. Go out the door, get near the ramp at the bottom of the parking lot. My grandson turns around and says, Papa, the door didn't shut. Papa turned around with his grandson, walked up the ramp, and shut the door. 10 seconds down the ramp,
30
10
seconds.
seconds up the ramp. 20 seconds, that door was open. How many people can go through an open door in 20 seconds? Do you know? I don't, but I know it only takes one bad person to get through it. Last Wednesday, my grandson had a detention. My son and I picked him up at about 4 o'clock. I rang the buzzer. No answer. I rang the buzzer again. Still no answer.
Mr. Shibble, I'm sorry, it's a 2-minute maximum, and you're at 2 minutes. I just want to.
I am. Okay.
Sorry about that. We'll let you do one last
Okay.
sentence if you like.
Okay, I hope I can come back and do this again because I didn't have to have it.
Thank you. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Lorena Salazar, 188 Prospect Street. So hello, everyone in the school committee, and hello, all the attendees. I'm so happy to see so many people here tonight. The one thing I would like to bring, I think like part of my role as a community organizer is usually around thinking in the spaces where we have like meetings for community members to make it more welcoming and more productive or more effective for community to be able to engage in the meetings, in the conversations in different ways. And since this is such an important space for the members of the community, for parents of the schools, I was wondering if it was possible to think another way to lay out the setup of the room, to make it like more inclusive. I don't know if like the chairs can be facing the screen so we can see like all the presentation in a different way, or if we could even be closer together, like kind of in a bigger like round circle table, do something, because I know for some community members that may want to come and participate may be a little bit intimidating, so the space, like if it was warmer or welcoming, even if you guys could, you know, be by the doors and be saying hi to people as they come in so they see your face. And it's not, like, this microphone is super scary.
30 seconds.
Sorry. So yeah, that's the thing. Like if we could work in more creative ways to make this space more warm and welcoming for public participation, because it's very scary sometimes. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sebastian Brown, and I believe he has a group of students. Okay, Sebastian, and then the group of students. Okay.
Sebastian Brown,
yeah.
18 Yale Street in Lawrence. So excited. Thanks for everyone who came tonight and then came last month too. Let's get a round of applause for ourselves. We're awesome for showing up. I know it feels like a scary space, but I think we're allowed to make noise, so it's okay. A lot of us know each other. We're a community, so it doesn't change just because we're in this room. And this is a big deal because I know last year there were some issues that were raised about the school library, and there's interest about people coming to the school committee meeting, and I came for the first time, and there was no one here. There were, I think, 3 people here, and so this room has been given life by us showing up like this, and we're just going to keep doing it. And so it was awesome that for this school committee meeting, I don't know who it was exactly from the central office, but they put it out on Facebook as an event, and I think that's a really important step because I think all of us have an interest in having as many people part of the conversation at the table, as many voices as possible part of it. So I think simple things like that and what Lorraine is talking about to really make it accessible. I do think that a lot of people who aren't able to come here still want to be part of the conversation somehow, because we know that as we transition out of receivership over the next couple years, that it's really important to have as many voices as possible. So even if not in this room, figuring out ways that we can go meet people where they're at. So there are some community members who've been talking about the idea of listening sessions, of community listening sessions, so y'all having a chance to also go out in the community, certain schools, churches, just to talk to people specifically about, we're in a transition moment, new superintendent, leaving receivership, what what does that look like? What does that transition plan look like? Timeline, benchmarks, and I think if we could go in the community and actually hear from them. And I have remarks from a high schooler who asked me to read hers. Maybe one of the Movement City youth could read it because I don't have time. But I really appreciate all y'all, and especially I just want to give a shout out to James for sitting up there.
2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe there's a group of students from Movement City that wanted to speak. If those of you who are speaking will at least give your name before you speak, okay?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Anna Elzer. Just want to welcome everybody to the space. My address is 92 Swan Street, so I'm actually a resident in Methuen. I work here in Lawrence at Movement City, and I have some of our young people in the crowd and standing behind me. So I'm just going to introduce some topics that we talked about last night and things that I've seen relevant to my experience working with young people in Lawrence. The magical thing about Movement City is that it's all about student voice and expression. We actually don't even call our youth population students, we call them members because we see them as an invested part of our community. And what they say and what they do has a lot of weight in how we make decisions. So as a previous teacher, I used to teach first and second grade and tried to have that kind of democratic practice in my classroom. I see that in actual practice every day in my job in an out-of-school program. So it's one point, also advocating for creative arts, and also just to echo Lorena's point and Sebastian's point as well about making this space warm and welcoming. And this is my first school committee meeting as well, so it feels wonderful to be here. Shout out to James again for representing. I think it's important that you're up there and that you're able to carry the student voice, but it's also important that students are here to share their own experiences. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
My name is Elena Nunez. I live on 36 Orchard Street. Just one of the things that I wanted to bring up was having resources available to students, as in like school psychologists, time to give them a break, like let them be aware of different options that there are in the community. Like I know there's different ways to be like financially aware and like learning about things like that. I feel like it's also important to teach people to be mindful and sensitive of the fact that like no one's life path is the same and success is different to everyone. To teach about mental health, sexual education, LGBTQ awareness, and everything important in life in that matter correctly and thoroughly. And to let children have a voice and practice that right at a young age. And just, resources and stuff, and yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. How are you doing? My name is Ariana Ruiz. I live on 75 Bailey Street, so here in Lawrence, Massachusetts. So what I want to talk about is I actually wanted to speak upon having more LGBT groups at school. I feel like with our community, everyone is very hostile. Everyone's to themselves and they don't really pay attention to one another. And I feel like if we had more groups such as so, that everyone could have a chance to be more unified, you know what I mean? It's very rare to kind of have everyone in like one little room kind of like sharing their own opinions on like what's going on with the environment and like the community among itself, you know what I mean? It's really hard to be yourself in a place such as so. Being a transgender student myself, I have to deal with things such as so, and I feel like with people kind of like joining together and kind of putting their differences, like not really putting their differences aside, but kind of like contributing like where they stand with one another, I feel like it'll just be more beneficial for everyone, and you know, it'll kind of be like a good opportunity for everyone to know one another and kind of to like, you know, just be able to like speak their mind and, you know, associate and kind of just, yeah.
Hi, my name is Valencia Lantigua. I live on 124 Farnham Street, and I'd like to discuss how schools don't really have a safe place for students. I know when I have off days, I'm not able to just miss a week of school because that's not easy to make up. And I feel like schools should have, like, even though we have our counselors are not as helpful as they should be. And I feel like the school should create probably like more resources to the students who feel like they can't be in class or even want to show up to school so that they're more comfortable. Thank you.
Is anyone left on the list?
We have, I don't know if
I think it's time. Yeah, it's time. We got to keep going with the meeting. Sorry, guys.
She wrote it down. Is it something we can submit?
Yeah, you can submit. Give it to
You
the
give it to
clerk.
us, we'll make sure they get it.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you. Jamil Martinez.
Hi, Jamil Martinez, 10 Saxony Avenue in Lawrence. I'm here as a parent. The last school committee was awesome, but the conversation after the school committee was that it was very intimidating for parents to be here because you guys are so far. It looked more like we were in a courtroom instead of, somewhere we can freely come and speak about things that are happening, concerns that we have. Maybe we can suggest that something be changed, like everybody else was mentioning, making it more welcoming so that students and families can speak up and we can all, come together as one. Because you guys, we voted you in, you are our voices, and I'm talking to you as a parent, not as a community member, not as somebody who works with the community, strictly as a parent. That is the way I am feeling, that is the way the voices of other parents in the group that we were in are also feeling. I also wanted to know if the school lunches have been addressed. We brought it up in the last school committee meeting. Nothing has been put out there. Nobody's talked about it. And the school year is almost at an ending. We were told that we needed to find out before you guys renew whoever we buy the lunches from, the contract, the school lunches have to be changed. So how can we address it? How can we as parents help and be supportive towards that? Because they need to change. Our children are going hungry all day. That is causing behavior issues. Not that they really have behaviors, but they're starving. Even when I'm hungry, I'm angry. So,
30 seconds.
Another thing is, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carlos Cruz.
Oh, my God.
Good evening. My name is Carlos Cruz. I'm a resident of Lawrence. I am a naturalized citizen originally from Colombia. I came to the US upon completing high school in Colombia very successfully. I came with a student visa to improve my English, seeking to study electrical engineering. I attended St. Anselm College for 3 years, and I then transferred to Notre Dame University in South Bend, Indiana. For financial reasons, I had to transfer to Northeastern University's Co-op Work-Study program, and there I graduated with a BS in electrical engineering. I taught honor calculus and AP calculus at Lawrence High School in 1996 when the head of the math department was out on leave to have back surgery. I sought to teach algebra in Spanish to 9th grade students after teaching honor calculus and AP calculus, as I have explained to you in writing, but the position was unfairly given to someone else. The average salary of a teacher in Lawrence appears to be between $52K and $57K. $50K is less than a year's salary, and I respectfully urge you to seek closure to this matter. I believe in the American dream, in the American experiment, the noble experiment that the US represents in the history of mankind. I have worked hard, smartly, and fairly to achieve the American dream, but it has so far been denied to me over the years by foul play by some. Please do what is right, do what is consistent with the American dream
30 seconds.
And the American experiment within the context of a meritocratic society. Thank you. I seek to be an exemplary math teacher for you. You, I, and all should facilitate that those who aspire and work for it get it. I have. Thank you.
Alyssa Salas.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I want to welcome James to the school committee. James Mora is the president of Lawrence High School, and he's also involved in Elevated Thought and a lot of great things. And thank you for all the youth that are here today from Movement City, Elevated Thought. I'm very proud of you all for leading the conversation of student voice. I also wanted to inform the public that there has been a board created, the Lawrence Education Alliance, and they have been seeking for a new superintendent, and that process has already started. Their next meeting is April 6th, and I believe it's in this space as well. So, April 4th, sorry, correction. April 4th, in the same space. So that has been started, and I just wanted to inform you all about that. So if you can find any representatives there, if you have any commentaries about the qualities that you are looking for in a superintendent, that is available for you. Thank you.
Raquel Bowden.
I'm going to give him my voice so he can finish what he was saying.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Thank you
Teamwork.
for that. Getting back to my little rant and rave. Last Wednesday, my grandson had a detention, and I picked him up. I rang the buzzer, no answer. I rang it again, no answer. As I go to ring it the third time, a student, a little boy, probably 5th grade, 4th grade, comes running out, opens the door, says, "My teacher told me to open the door for you." We go into the security at the desk. There was no security at the desk. We go into the office. I see several ladies and one gentleman. So I asked them, how come I was just let into a building by a student with no security at the desk? He said to me, security goes home at 3:30. I'm so sorry, he said. I told him that was a problem. And he said, I'm sorry. He said, I told him, I said, I don't want you to be sorry. I want you to fix the problem. Going out the door, the building, the door didn't shut again. The same door I talked about earlier. Now, last Friday, my son had a meeting with the principal on a different matter. So I went with them again to the meeting. The meeting was at 12 p.m. in the middle of the afternoon. We rang the buzzer. We get buzzed in. We sign in. We asked the girl at the desk, why were we let in, not knowing who we were?
30 seconds.
She was speechless. Another security officer at the desk asked if there was a problem. I told him what the problem was, and he says, well, that's the way we do things here. So my son had the meeting, and then I mentioned this all to the principal. I was told by her, yes, these are problems. No one seems to have solutions. It's a citywide problem we have. I never even thought about all the other schools having the same problem. I hope, as you all listen to my rant and rave tonight, that you as educators of our children brainstorm some ideas and solve the safety and security issues. I thank you very much for both of my time.
Anna Javier.
Good evening, Assistant Superintendent Bergeron, members of the school committee, and Mayor Rivera. My name is Anna Javier. I reside at 14 Ferry Street. My 4 children grew up in the school department, and now I have grandchildren going in, but I'm here. I'm going to shorten things down because I know it was shortened to the 2 minutes. I stand before you tonight because I keep track of reading the newspapers, watching the news, and most importantly, I keep a very good relationship with a lot of our parents and a lot of our children and youth in the city. Therefore, I have been listening to many concerns coming from the parents and the students. History itself tells us that violent acts of hate has been sweeping our nation, and it's very concerning. One thing I've noticed is that it's becoming a normal behavior for our own children to be the ones performing these crimes. And we know of the surrounding cities that have had different violent threats. But last night I was informed of something that happened at the Partham School where a 14-year-old student was arrested in the morning, I believe at 10 in the morning, according to the newspaper. And last night around 10:20 or so, I received a call from my brother asking me if I knew what was happening in the Partham School because they had just received a voice message that went out to other parents at 10:16 last night. So the parents were not informed throughout the daytime. They were not informed any earlier. And at this time, it created a concern with my brother and the wife, and obviously the children. And as we know, what we're going through in our nation. Our kids are afraid to go into school, and parents are afraid to send them. And I am just looking to find out what the school department actually has put in place for safety. We have not had any conversations as parents, as community. I speak to the youth, to the kids, and they tell me I don't know what to do if there was a shooting in my school. So I strongly suggest that this committee makes a decision and we don't save this to make a decision next year, next school year. Right now, things are happening, and they're happening each and every day, and the city of Lawrence is not exempt at all. Thank you.
Lisa Radchick? Oh, okay. Tom Myers?
Tom Myers, and I live at 550 Haverhill Street. And Dan, if I give you a compliment, can we exclude that from the time? Is that okay?
No, thank you.
Okay. Well, quickly, I just wanted to, because I haven't had a chance yet, to publicly thank you for your measured and sophisticated and caring response on the opioid crisis in response to, the anti-immigrant rant that President Trump made. Just a couple quick comments, and first of all, I think that Lorena and Jamil both made some excellent recommendations about creating a more user-friendly space. It's admirable to see so many students here, and I think to create for all of us the most comfortable environment possible really works in everyone's best interest. And then obviously there are several important issues that are being brought to your attention. And the difficulty, as you well know, is under the continued receivership now called this Alliance Board, the school committee still is not empowered under what should be their power to govern properly the school system. And so I'm asking Dan, as the mayor and also a member of that board, to push the board for specific criteria as to when the school committee, and I will say the teachers union gaining their rights under 150E will occur. What's the criteria? What's the timeline? And I think to press them for that, to have continued state control is not in our interest. We have a very competent and talented board, as I think we all can agree in front of us right now. They're elected by us, and I think that's the critical thing. Democracy begins when we elect officials and the officials are allowed to govern. And the people that are coming in from outside are not elected officials. Thanks so much for your time, guys. Take care.
Thank you, Tom.
And Celia Negron.
I'm Celia Negron from 26 Logan Street. I just had to say that I think I'm like, if you guys look at me, I'm a kid, quote unquote kid. I'm like youth, I'm younger. But I think that because you guys view me as this way and view so many of the people that I'm with and like so many other youth around me as younger, you guys kind of underestimate our power. And I think that when there's meetings like this, people like in youth should be aware of that. They should be able to feel free to come in and put their opinions out. I think that they should be aware of that because their voices matter and they're not kids. They have an opinion and it's a strong opinion. And if you get the right person, they can advocate for themselves perfectly and efficiently. I think that we're being excluded way too much as far as like meetings like this and like education, because we go through that system. I go to Abbott and obviously I have an opinion on the school system. The kids that I'm around, they do too. Not all of them are just complaining. Some of them, they actually have a genuine opinion that's not biased or anything like that. They go to classes and they feel like the teachers, they're teaching one way that isn't effective for everybody else in the class. That's an effective opinion. It's gonna like change things if they voice that, but they're not able to because they're not aware of things like this. So I think that we should just be more aware and get it out more to the youth so that they can voice their opinion.
And that concludes public participation.
The names we read into the record.
Mr. Mayor?
Committee Member Salas.
I would like to motion if we can move questions and discussions after public participation so that we're able to discuss and kind of clarify anything that we would like to speak on.
I second.
I'm not sure I understand the motion.
So with my understanding of last meeting, I was observing the structure of the meeting, and I feel that when the public goes up and speaks and then we have a presentation, there's a disconnect between the conversation of like what we're able to address and things get lost between that gap. So I was wondering if we can kind of shift the way that the meeting is structured so that there isn't people going home with just like, unclarity.
Yeah, so the agenda is posted and we got to go through the agenda. We can move stuff around the agenda. The reality is that we do the 2-minute public participation and we don't do back and forth with people on public participation because the rules of public participation is just to listen. I think that again, there's a motion in a second. So just to recognize discussion, does anybody else have anything to say about this? I don't want to talk without recognizing discussion.
Sorry.
Because we're going to do this orderly. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what she's kind of referring to is the fact that, you know, with public participation, you know, there are members of the community that are bringing up valid concerns. So, you know, if there needs to be additional questioning, whether we need to schedule a meeting to talk about reviewing safety policies, because the public doesn't want to feel like they're ignored. I think that's where Elisa is kind of heading with that.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, so again, there were those recurring themes around safety for students, and you know, as a school committee member, I feel that it's incumbent upon us to not just hear those things, but to actually respond and give folks answers so they can walk away feeling safe and parents can feel like their children are safe. I know at one point the idea was brought up to have listening sessions. I think that's a really good idea. Maybe this isn't the forum to do this, but maybe if we have a listening session, obviously we'd abide by the public meeting laws, but allow folks to just ask questions and not just complain. Like Celia said, not just complain about what's happening, but come up with community-based solutions. And I think one of the ways to do that is to actually outreach to the community so that we're hearing what the issues are, and then collectively we're coming up with strategic, solution-based answers so that we can then bring those back to the school committee and put them on the agenda.
Yeah, so I would suggest to you that there's, and I'm going to talk on the matter just so that, you know, it's our meeting and we could, if there's a majority of people that want to move it, that we could do that. I think that there's work to be done that's on the agenda. We got to get through all that. And the reason, you know, we have had public participation at the beginning for a very long time in this community with this, the way this stuff is set up in the back, so that we can get through the work and then have a discussion afterwards if there's some other conversation. Sometimes this isn't the best way to get to the bottom of the answer, to the bottom of the question people have about security, about food. And so it's easy to get caught up in the idea of like, because the cameras are on and things are happening, we can get to a discussion that may not be as productive as it could be. I'm going to vote against moving it. I think that we got to get through the work that we have in front of us. We have an update on some building projects and some grading stuff. I would like to, I'm shocked that the teacher's contract isn't on the agenda. I'm just hoping that now that we know that these are of concern, you make a motion to put it on the agenda so we can all get some information and bring it back for the next meeting. Because I think we're going to have an uneducated conversation unless we know, hey, next meeting we're going to talk about security. We're going to have Mr. Hernandez come down here and give us an update on every building and go top to bottom, and then have questions. And actually we can say, hey, so we're going to have Mr. Hernandez up here next week. Everybody send us any questions you have. I have a question about South Lawrence East in the back, or I have a question about the Hennessy in the front. There's a broken window, that type of stuff. It's more thoughtful. It takes a little bit of self-control to sit here and just listen and not feel like you want to just jump in. But what we have experienced in the past is that when we don't do that, if we're reacting to, I agree with her. I have seen in the past that the conversation doesn't go as constructive as people want it to. But, you know, I'm just one voice. Anybody else want to talk on the matter?
Okay.
Can we make a friendly amendment to that motion?
So you can accept it or not.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
Can we move that items that are brought forward in public participation that need to be addressed be placed on the next meeting's agenda so that they can be discussed thoroughly with the appropriate background and information? Would you accept that?
Yeah, I accept it.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that obviously we don't want to be disruptive to the meeting and to the structure that exists. I do think, though, it's important that parents, there's some timeliness to the issues around security. As a parent, I feel the urgency that other parents might feel around their students being safe in school. So again, to the point about, for sure, let's add it to the next agenda, but let's also make sure that the format is such that folks can really contribute and ask questions and bring up solutions. And again, this may be the forum for that, or maybe it's not the forum, but I just want to put it out there that I want folks to know that we are responsive, so it's less kind of not wanting to be impulsive and answer right away, but more about just wanting to make sure that our students are safe.
Yeah, and anybody else? Just so I can talk again. You know, I feel like sometimes this stuff will get missed, so I don't know what's being recorded on the minutes. And so I know we have the videotape. We can go back to the videotape and go through what the issues were specifically and get maybe a rundown. If something's, the back door at the South Lawrence East School is clearly an issue, make sure that it gets closed. It closes, it has the ability to close. So hopefully we can get maybe an email response to some of those issues that come up with, in the past. The school system has been responsive. And when it hasn't, like we haven't been with the issue about the food, there's no real information about the food, even though it was brought up last time. Parents are really quick to call us out, and we just got to get back on the ball. And so the other thing that I think we can all do is, if folks want to make sure folks have our emails, and that you feel like you didn't get heard here because somebody was up talking, you can always reach out to us individually and make sure that we get that information back to you. Trust what I'm saying to you is that I have been in this meeting about our schools when people have gotten into fistfights. Okay, that's not where we are. I know we're a different board, different place, but I think if we get out of if we don't have a sense of like, we're going to do 2 minutes, everybody. We're going to do this process, and at the end we're going to have questions. If we don't have this process, I think that it lends itself to some chaos. And so there was a friendly amendment. It was accepted. Anybody else want to talk on the matter?
I just want to say that I think another forum is neighborhood association meetings. I've had people come over to me at those and voice their concerns, and Again, the same reoccurring themes with security, and I think it's up to us to, address those matters through the proper channels and get answers. I don't know that we can't do it here back and forth.
That is no way to squash people's energy and vibe on this. I think this is great. Folks should keep coming and doing that. And you'll see next week, if we haven't talked about the things that are important to us, you'll hold our feet accountable to it. So, and any other discussion? Seeing none. The motion on the floor is to ensure that let me see if I get it wrong. The matters that are brought up at public participation of note and interest to the folks in the community get addressed on the agenda of the next meeting. We could actually call it an item called public participation follow-up, so that we make sure that it's a specific line item, public participation follow-up, and it gets put on the next agenda. Yeah? Yeah.
Also,
at the top. At the top of the next agenda.
Yeah, and also if the public would like to submit their concerns before the meeting happens so that we can request them on the agenda so that, you're not coming here and then waiting for the next meeting for it to be addressed. So you can email us in advance about, security or lunches, and so that we can make sure that that is on the agenda. So feel free to grab any of our contacts, because I want to make sure that you guys feel like this is an engaging process and that things are getting checked off.
Anyone else? See none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
So just as an update, Dr. Rivera had asked for SAFE to be put on the agenda. However, the agenda had already been published and posted. So when it came through, I've already committed to her that that's on the agenda for April, because she had asked for that to be on the agenda for the April meeting. So as parents and the community know, our agenda has to be posted and published at City Hall the Friday before the meetings. So I can't get a request the day before and put it on an agenda that's already been put out for the public record.
Yeah,
So
that's
if
state
things
law.
need to go out, they need to be in like a week prior to any meeting that we would be having, so that we can make sure that we adjust the meeting agenda accordingly to ensure that that can be covered. But I will put school lunch also on it for April. So we just have a few updates. I do welcome James. I had the opportunity to meet with James before we had our walkout day at Lawrence High, so we're very happy to have him here. Today we want to just show you a couple of short videos. I'm going to have James introduce the one about the walkout so that he can give you a little background on that. But the first one we're going to show today is the production of Aida that was done at Lawrence High School.
It's in
So for those who like a little theater arts, the Wizard of Oz with, I believe, Flying Monkeys is going to be playing at the PAC Center in early May. So watch for that. It'll be in the newspaper. It will be posted on the Lawrence Public Schools website for a nice evening out and not too expensive. It's a great, great event. Our second video is just as we end our Irish Heritage Month in the city, recap of our participation in the Lawrence St. Patrick's Day Parade. And of course, it was nice that you took the video on the coldest spot on the route, over the river. Dave just advised me that Wizard of Oz is starting next week, so next Thursday, so if you wish to attend. I'm going to turn over to James because James helped to organize the Lawrence High School Walkout Day and worked collaboratively with the administration to make this all happen, but it was truly led by the students. So if you want to just do a little intro to it, James.
He's gonna. So, given the recent event of school shootings in the United States, me and my friends decided that it was important to show our solidarity with all victims of school shootings across the nation, and we decided to organize a school walkout. We approached administration about it, and immediately we got, great, give us a proposal. We went back with a proposal, we got it approved, and we had no idea how much work it was going to be to transport 2,000 students anywhere. But the truth is, it was worth it. It got a conversation started on campus, and it got people motivated and involved and active. For example, I know of a couple student leaders who were able to go to the March for Our Lives in Boston this past Saturday. And I really believe that this was a shining moment of student leadership in our district, and I really hope that student voice can be a guiding factor for the future of our district.
And from the administration, we want to thank James because in the midst of all of this walkout talk, we had our snowfall. And he and his team were very cooperative about rearranging to make sure it was a safe event for everyone. So we appreciate James's and the team's cooperation with that. So we wanted to show you a little bit about what happened on that particular day.
Enough is enough. 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 It's time we need change in this country. We're tired of our people being killed. We need change. Enough is enough. Enough is enough.
The 17 lives that were lost do not just represent 17 lives. There are 17 people that will never be able to smile again. There are 17 people that will never be able to see their homes again, never be able to hug their parents, never be able to stress about school or college or anything that life was going to throw at them. These are 17 lives that will never get to age, that will never get to live their lives. These are 17 lives that gave us a reason to come out here today and protest gun violence.
Y'all already know the stereotype people got about Lawrence and Lawrence High and everyone from Lawrence, that we don't care, that we're only worried about ourselves. Today, y'all showed America just how much y'all care. Now we're gonna go back to class because they're not gonna take our school away from us. They're not gonna take our learning away from us. And we're gonna go back as a family. Thank you.
And that event was very orderly. The message was out. Students had returned to class. We think about 2,000 or so students actually participated voluntarily. If they chose not to, they were allowed to stay in a classroom in the building. So we're very proud of the message and the work the students did on that. And the last thing we want to show tonight is the Department of Education had a competition as they want to celebrate their Leading the Nation status. And we were encouraged to submit a video about why we believe we're leading the nation. And our video is one of 4 that was selected across the state to be shown at the State House during their week when they're demonstrating what's happening in Massachusetts education.
Traditional learning is important, but some students need an added incentive to come to school every day.
While some districts are cutting back, the Lawrence Public Schools has expanded arts and enrichment programs. Our biggest programs are more than 500 students take advantage of our music programs. Students can join chorus and take instrumental lessons.
Ballet, jazz, tap, and our STEP teams keep students on their toes. Teams compete in fall, winter, and spring. Over 3,000 students participate.
Hundreds of future Broadway stars participate in our theater program, featuring lavish productions and amazing performances. Does it work? Attendance rates are higher, and teachers think it's a great way to motivate students to come to school every day.
What's the best thing of having enrichment at the Lawrence Public Schools?
To hear me sing.
To hear us sing.
So I'm sure most districts went after the achievement end. I think we said, yeah, achievement's important, but the opportunity for our students is even greater to allow them to engage and be incentivized to be at school all the time. So we're proud of LPS Media for their submission and being selected as one of the 4. So those are the big updates to date. Tonight, though, we are presenting to you our move towards a standards-based grading and reporting structure. Dr. Toomey has been working for the last 2 years on this project, working with administrators and teachers, and we're now at the point where we're piloting in the 3rd term so that we can now get parent feedback and discussion about what does this look like, and students will begin to see it and be able to tell us how well they think it reflects what they're actually doing. So I'm leaving to Dr. Toomey to be able to do a presentation. There are copies of the presentation in English and Spanish that Joan will have available. And I believe the second screen is going to be in Spanish for those who need that. So we're going to do it in both languages. Well, Mary's not going to do it in both languages, but it will be on the screen in the second language.
Okay, good evening, and thank you very much, Dr. Bergeron. It is a pleasure to be here and present to the school committee as well as to our parents that are here and the community members. So thank you for this opportunity. This has been an investment of 2 years, as Dr. Bergeron said. We did a very comprehensive look with bringing a work group together to study the research around why standards-based grading and reporting, and what does this mean for our students and our families and our teachers, our educators, and how can this support us moving in the right direction. In the last several years, we have been very focused as a school department on working with Common Core standards and now the Massachusetts new state framework standards that are very aligned to Common Core. And our teachers are very expert now at planning their instruction from the standards and aligned to the standards. And that work is going on, and we feel really confident that it's happened. We also learned doing this work over the last couple of years with a couple dozen educators and administrators coming together on their own time to participate in the work group. We learned that we might be a little behind for Massachusetts and for the nation in terms of making a move to standards-based grading and a new report card. However, we took advantage of that because we learned many lessons from those that came before us. We had the opportunity to look at representative samples of what things happened for other districts, and I think that what the result is, and I hope that you will agree, is that what we're about to pass out and what we're about to use moving forward for all of our K-8 schools is something that we can all be very, very proud of, and I hope that you will agree when you see that. So just to start really quickly, we know that standards describe what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. It's a very articulated and very defined set of skills at every single grade for domains that are within the 4 major content areas. So that would be English language arts, mathematics, science, and history, social science. And as a matter of fact, Massachusetts is just voting on the latest version to the revision of the history social science framework. And we, in our attempt to create this new reporting system, have even included the 2018 revision. So this just gives you a little information about where Massachusetts was. The last frameworks were established in 1996. There was a modification in 2011, and that's when we saw the significant change. That's when the Common Core state standards came in math, English, and literacy, history, social science, science, and the technical subjects. And that's when things started to shift. And it was a couple of years after that that I think we started to pay more attention to adopting curriculum resources and practices that were much more aligned with what the new Common Core was asking us. And then in 2016, Massachusetts adopted a new framework for science, technology, and engineering, aligned very closely to the next generation science standards. And in 2018, the MCAS that's going to be just a few weeks away, we will see our first examples of a more performance-aligned system, and it will be connected and aligned closely to the new 2016 frameworks. In 2019, the MCAS will be completely aligned to the new framework. So right now, our teachers we've given them a crosswalk document in grades 5 and 8. We expect the test in 2018 to have some of the 2011 standards as well as some of the 2016 ones. And then last year, in 2017, Massachusetts adopted the next generation frameworks for ELA and math, and again aligned very closely to Common Core. And that is also reflected in the first round of next generation MCAS tests that our students took last year in 2017 and will take again now in 2018. So all of this background to really say that there's been a shift. We know that there's been a shift in the nation. Certainly there's been a shift in Massachusetts, and it's time for us to think about better ways to communicate to students and to parents in terms of what that is. So just a little more about what Common Core is. I'm not going to read that to you. And again, this information is provided to you so that you can look at it again if you need to. It is aligned with expectations for college and career success. They are clear, so educators and parents know what they need to do to help students. And it's not an arbitrary or guessing game in terms of what it is, what are the skills, grade by grade. And there's also a vertical articulation that's really nice so that it builds on one another so that we know from grade 1 to grade 2 to grade 3 and on up that we're building on a structure for our students so that there is a through line that's moving vertically across. It's also consistent across states and schools, so students are not taught to a lower standard because of where they live or because of the school that they go to. It gives us that consistency. It's also based on 2 things, content and application of knowledge through high order skills, so that we know that our students can not only learn the content, but it's a shift from years ago when we were basing a lot of schooling on memorization of facts. And now we really have shifted to a much higher level of inquiry so that our students can apply what they know and what they've learned to other and new situations. The skills of critical thought, really important. They're also very realistic for use in the classroom and in the real world. So we see that a lot in the Common Core, that there's real life application. So students are given real examples of if you were at the store and there was several things to purchase, how would you choose where you were getting the better value, and using a unit measure and teaching about a unit measure and how that would happen. So very realistic. And it's informed by other top performing countries so that all students are prepared to succeed in a global economy and society. And so that's really important too as we move through. Massachusetts standards, as we know, have set students ahead. We hear this all the time about Massachusetts being the leader in the nation, and that is true. The NAEP assessment ranked Massachusetts first of all the states for 4th grade and 8th grade in both reading and math. But I just put a little bit on this slide so that you can see that there is still more work to do as a state and as a district. So you can see there, as a result of the PARCC assessment, which was what we took in 2016. Last year was our first round with the next generation MCAS. So they're still leveling out where that goes. But you can see that in Massachusetts, there is still a portion of students that are not meeting expectations in ELA, and even a larger percentage of students that are not meeting it in math. And while we have grown in the Lawrence Public Schools over the last few years, this is a place where there's still more work for us to do, and particularly around 3rd grade. It's a place where we've seen not the same level of growth in grade 3 over the last half a dozen years, and we feel really strongly that we have not paid enough attention to foundational supports for students in grades kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. And so one of the curriculum adoptions that we made this year was to support that. So what is the purpose of report cards? Why are we reporting information to parents anyway? I mean, we do it, we ask our teachers to do this work. Certainly the meetings that we do with parents in terms of conferencing and providing information is very, very important. But the actual report card should be designed to be accurate information. It should be feedback that tells families and students about their progress toward meeting those grade level standards. And we think that that's critical. The rationale for a standards-based grading and reporting system comes from the fact that students do learn at different rates and in different ways, and we have to allow for that. They do ensure consistency from classroom to classroom and from school to school, and they provide a more accurate representation of student progress. They should inform teachers, students, and parents of the specific strengths, and also what are the specific areas where we're going to work on so that there's more growth and we can lead to increased success. So we're looking for that specific level of detail that we can provide to parents. A traditional report card generally will provide only one and maybe 2 indicators of performance or grades for each subject. Usually there's only 1 grade for mathematics, and it's usually a letter grade that's somewhat arbitrary. We know that it has a numerical value somewhere in that, but the parent usually doesn't know all that went into determining what that grade is. And we know from working with Common Core over the last half a dozen years or more that mathematics, for example, is broken into domains that are very specific, and we need to talk about them in terms of different skills that go along with each one. How is the student performing in geometry, or in measurement and data, or in operations and algebraic thinking, down to very low grade levels? So these distinctions are very important. Content should be defined by specific academic skills and knowledge. We should allow our parents to have detailed information about the skills that their child has acquired and where they may need more support. So this is just a slide that gives you an example of what the difference looks like, so that rather than just seeing literacy or just seeing English or just seeing reading, now the parent's going to have the opportunity to see all the domains that come under English language arts. So we know that that includes reading literature, we know that it includes foundational skills for some grades, speaking and listening, language and vocabulary, writing. All of those things are important, and this is just a sample. I'm going to explain to you a little bit about how we came up with something very unique for our Lawrence reporting system. And this sample is not inclusive of all the selected standards that will be on the Lawrence report card. And the academic performance indicators will mirror what the MCAS performance indicators do, so that we will be talking about whether students are meeting, which is the expected area of growth, and we'll use an M for that, or whether they're actually exceeding expectations, and we'll use an E for that. And we'll talk about how we get to that in a minute. So again, looking at a mind shift of traditional versus standards-based grading, this is why we took 2 years to do this work, because at the end of last school year, we began training teachers and providing professional development and instruction to think about what are the differences when they're going to be shifting now to a standards-based grading option. And the standards-based grading really promotes the idea that to get really good at something, if you're going to master something, a particular skill, playing the piano, for example, we don't want to, come right out of the gate at the beginning of someone's learning and have them go play a symphony. We're going to help them to practice, get better at the skill, and wait for them to be ready. So the idea of an average is moved away in a standards-based grading toward the idea of taking a look, a snapshot of the learning at the end of the time that the instruction was provided. So if we're going to look at a particular standard or group of standards, and the teacher is going to determine with their school what the length of time is that that particular unit is going to be in play, it might be a 6-week unit, the teacher is going to want to look at where the child has performed toward the end of that unit. In this particular example, the average here, if we averaged all of those numbers across, we would get a 73 number, and in a traditional grading system, that might be a C-. But in a standards-based grading report, we're going to give credit for the student on the 8th, 9th, or 10th try when the student is showing mastery of that skill after practicing for a set amount of time. That's the important shift. Not easy for all of our educators to make, so we're going to be patient, but it's important that we understand that standards-based grading is assuming that instruction and practice is going on. And for kids who need more time, that's also very important to understand. This is another graphic that shows it in the exact same way, only just using a line graph instead. You can see where that 73 would fall in the middle if we were taking an average of all of the attempts. And instead, we would want to score that child as M for meeting expectations for all of the independent work that the child is doing toward the end of the term. Traditional report cards often include factors that probably shouldn't be included when we're thinking about doing an average. Things like behavior, attendance, homework completion, effort, extra credit for bringing in a box of tissues. We've heard a lot of reasons why things happen in terms of how we can get credit toward an average score that goes on a report card. Some of these things are very important, and we don't want to lose sight of them. And so I will show you how we've incorporated that into the standards-based report card. But certainly when we're talking about content area skills and Common Core standards, we want the grades and the performance indicators to reflect just how the student is making progress in that area. We don't want to include the variability in grading that happens from not only one school to another, but even within a school. You will find from one teacher to another that there's a variability in how that teacher is grading, even within sometimes the same grade, because that subjectivity that comes into it causes that to happen. And we want to eliminate that for our parents and for our students. It makes it difficult for everyone to really identify the specific strategies that will support student success down the road and mastery of grade-appropriate standards. And so that's really the goal here, where we're trying to get to. But as I said, those skills are very important, and we looked at a lot of different iterations of what this can look like. And we fell upon some that Lexington Public Schools are using, and we married them with a few of our own. And this idea of calling them pro-social skills, that we want to promote positive social interactions, and we broke them into two sections. Those that are personal development skills for the classroom and the community, and those that are approaches to learning. And these are only a sampling because they don't all fit on the slide. And we are going to use a different indicator, so not the letters that are assigned to the content areas of the standards. Instead, we're going to use a numbering system from 4 to 1 that tell how consistently is the student demonstrating that particular skill. And this is an important area. So we've started talking about that with teachers as well. It was very important to the work group that we came up with a graphic that was going to be something that was great for teachers, for educators, for students, for parents, for everyone to really sort of wrap their head around this new idea of what does it mean if we're going to remove letter grades and we're going to move to a performance indicator. And so riding a bike is another one of those metaphors that's great. And if you start near the bottom, when you can see that when we're just starting to ride a bike, the training wheels are on, we're using them, we're starting to learn, and we're not yet meeting the goal of being able to ride that two-wheeler on our own. And then we move up the scale into partially meeting, and we're pedaling, but we still have someone kind of guiding us in case it gets a little wobbly, right? So you still need more support to get there. And I want to point out that the goal for all of this is meeting. Meeting is the goal. Meeting is the goal on MCAS. That's when we're being very successful. We have mastered the standard. We're meeting the expectation of what's expected, and we're going on our merry journey on our two-wheel bike on our own. But then there's also exceeds. And this is a great example of how you're not only riding a bike, but you're popping wheelies and you're doing jumps and all of these things, which I would never be able to do. But there certainly are those boys and girls who will be able to exceed our expectations. They do it every single day. So I like this slide. I hope it's something that you find is helpful to really understand. I think our students, as we roll this out to them, will be able to understand it. So just some reminders. Student performance levels represent the student's performance at the time that the teacher is grading the report card. And so there's an expectation that it's not unusual for a child in a standards-based reporting system to earn a range of indicators. That's really the point. We want to see where the strengths are with the E's and M's, and we also want to see where the P's and N's are. Where are we going next and what's happening? I also want to point out that it's never intended to have every standard graded every time. The Common Core standards and the Massachusetts frameworks are a set of skills that are meant to be acquired over an entire year, not in one trimester. And I want to say a little bit more about that after this slide. For students with accommodations, the content of the standard remains the same. But the instructional strategies and methods for demonstrating mastery, those may be adjusted. And we've included an opportunity for the teacher to point that out on the report card just by simply checking a box that says instruction with modifications, not calling out a student who may have an IEP or a student who's a second language learner, but making it just aware that there are times when a student does need instruction with modifications. All students, and this was very important to the committees who worked on this the last 2 years, that all students, including those with special learning needs and English language learners, should have the opportunity for frequent review and multiple opportunities for practice. That's why this is a fair system. So it's really, really important that that happen. This is my last slide, and then again I'm going to explain to you what we've done in Lawrence that I think we should all be very proud of. But our outcome is to increase student achievement, and we want students and teachers to have clear and explicit learning targets, going from, the little boy questioning on the left, who's saying, I think I'm doing fairly well in math, and I get confused sometimes, but not really sure. And the grading isn't really giving specific skills, to the slide, the graphic on the right that is saying, I understand how to add and subtract multi-digit numbers, but I need to work on automaticity of my math facts. Very specific, very targeted strength, and also where do I go from here and what do I need? So we were faced with a little dilemma in Lawrence when we started to look at this. And as a result of school-based autonomy that we have in our district, Schools are not all required to follow the same scope and sequence of curriculum or even the same publisher of curriculum. That's an independent decision that most of our schools make, although there is some agreement around some of the larger adoptions, and so like I told you about K-2 using core knowledge language arts this year in 165 K-2 classrooms. I'm very proud that we're making that investment in our younger students because I think that's going to lead to where we're getting with third grade and moving them on. But we wanted to really give schools some flexibility and autonomy, and we still wanted to make sure that we were addressing all of the standards that Massachusetts are saying is important. So many districts will cherry pick standards, and they will say, these are the ones you're going to use first term, these are the ones you'll use second term, and then these are the ones you'll use in the third term. It was also very important to the work group and committee that we didn't say, ourselves as a work group, well, we think that number 1 and number 10 are the most important standards for English language arts. So we're going to leave the others off the report card. The teachers will get to it, but we just won't be able to have a way to share that with parents. So instead, we took the idea that there must be a way to do this, and through some very smart folks that I won't take the credit of, we have some great educators out there that are curriculum leaders in our schools, and they came up with the idea that if we cluster standards together and we come up with standard statements, cluster standard statements that will print on the report card, but give teachers access in their grade book to all of the standards that come underneath, that they will be able to very effectively create assignments in their grade book, tag the standards that they think go with them, and then through the work that we have with Power Teacher Pro, which is part of our Power School platform, it automatically rolls up that into the performance indicator that will print on the report card, and the teacher always reserves the right to override that in case they don't agree with the way that's happened. But it's giving us, I think, a report card number 1. We'll probably be the first district in Massachusetts to be fully aligned to the newest state frameworks, and I think that we'll have a very unique report card around making sure that all of the standards are at least available to teachers, with the option of, if there's something that's blank, we have given that key that says not assessed this term or not assessed at this time, with the understanding we would never do all of them at the same time. We have a sample for you so that you can get a better idea of what this might look like. We're doing a pilot, as Dr. Bergeron said, thanks to the staff at Weatherby School, and for third term, and the wonderful parents there have been notified and informed that we are going to try the new report card with K-8 at Weatherby, and we're going to seek some parent input about how that feels, and maybe even open the parent portal up to some of the parents there so that they can see the grades, standard-based grades, live time, as soon as the teacher enters the grade for the assignment. We're very excited about what that could mean in terms of increasing communication for them. The one piece that I didn't mention to you that wasn't part of this is that we also created something unique in terms of something we're calling integrated studies. So that's another piece of autonomy where we don't have the same set of electives from school to school, and in some cases our schools have very unique electives that they're very proud of, that they've developed, and they don't want to leave. So we took a survey and we created sort of a menu of offerings of what we're calling integrated studies, and schools may choose 6 or 7 of those that will fit nicely on the report card, and we have standard statements that align to each one of the electives. So our elective teachers will have the opportunity also to provide performance indicators for those electives that they instruct. And so that's being received very well by our educators that teach elective courses as well. I think that brings me to the end. Thank you very much.
So we haven't forgotten the high school. We know we said this is K-8. High school has started some of their work around aligning their standards, but putting a report card together for there is a little bit different because of all the unique courses. So they're working over the next year or so to do similar type of structure. So there'll be an alignment of standards that would be in the mathematics if you're taking an algebra class, if you're taking a calculus class, if you're taking a science or tech class. ultimately it will be there. And I think for high school students, this will help you to kind of know where you need to go and to help plan kind of what's my next step, where am I really strong on, and where do I want to be going based on the information I'm getting. I think you'll find it a lot more user-friendly for you than just getting an A or a C or a D and figuring out, well, what did that really mean? Where did I need to grow? It's going to be a mind shift in terms of parents getting used to not seeing a letter grade that they're used to seeing. So we are going to be doing parent forums. The first one is the 11th of April at the President's Council, and we'll be rolling out more communication because it is very different. And I know at the high school level, people were nervous about, well, will colleges accept this? It's very similar. You can make a correlation between meeting being in the A, or exceeding being in the A range, meeting being in the B range. So colleges are getting used to the idea that this is how grading will be coming down the pike. So I don't think it's going to be drastically different by the time we roll it out at the high school level, and you'll still do GPAs and all of that will still be there. But it is going to be a change, so we are starting slow. We know when the new superintendent comes aboard, he or she, I'm not going to say he or she will make a decision about the speed at which things will roll out as they get their feet wet and take on the day-to-day work here. But we open it for any questions you might have. It's a lot of info.
Pat Mariano?
Yes, Dr. Toomey, I want to, first of all, this is very exciting, and I'd like to commend you and your team for putting this together. Does this lead into something that I've been very, very interested in with the performance-based assessments?
So, as you know, we've been talking about performance-based assessments for a very long time, and exhibitions of learning as ways for students to demonstrate mastery. And portfolios being very important. So we know for sure in science that the new next generation MCAS is going to be very much performance-based, so that the items will really kind of provide a scenario, and students will need to think through that scenario, maybe even a materials list, and have to make some assumptions and then, you know, create their solutions. So we think that very much so the performance assessment is in our future.
Thank you.
And I think we'll be ready as a result, so it's very exciting.
Will there be opportunities, as a follow-up, will there be opportunities for students to demonstrate their learning using this report card? Will the
Oh,
teachers?
absolutely. I think it'll make it much clearer to students, you know, and to families in terms of how they're meeting the goals and how they're meeting that. And I believe that it will allow our teachers to get more creative with the assignments that they're making. You know, Mary Lou mentioned that the transition is going to take some time. One of the concerns that we heard from Weatherby teachers who are starting the pilot was that, what about high school decisions based on our new third term report card? Will be the only middle school in Lawrence that's going to have a different report card for this third term. So what we did for them was to create a numerical value for 7th and 8th grade for every content. There is a way in the algorithm for the reporting system to do that. I think eventually that crutch will go away. Folks won't need that anymore. But for the time being, it made folks feel better to provide a numerical average. It's not as simple as, you know, just having one letter equate. There is a sort of numerical way that that's done and that's handled on the back end. But PowerSchool does that for the teacher.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Salas?
So will this also change in PowerSchool, the online, where students can check their...
If you have the online portal now, then it will be the same, except that it will convert over to the new standards-based grading. So right now at the Weatherby, they are not using the portal for parents, but we have asked them to, you know, invite some parents who might be interested so that we can receive the feedback about how that experience is. We have some schools that are using the portal now, but not all. We're hoping to encourage all of our schools to open the parent portal if, in fact, we do get to roll this out next fall for all of our schools, because I think that that communication is amazing when parents get that right on their phone.
Another follow-up. So would you say with this update of the report card that kids will, and parents can see in all areas how a student is performing, not just academically, but in all areas of like communication, engagement.
Correct. That pro-social skills page, and Joni's going to give you a sample third grade for you to look at. It's 4 pages single-sided, which is the same length as our current report card, which we print double-sided, still, 2 pieces of paper, but 4 sides. So we were able to really include a lot of information without lengthening the amount. We also brought the Spanish up, so it's not English on one side and Spanish on the other. It was very important to the work group that we had everything right there for the parents, so they were reading it simultaneously. And that was another important thing. We had to get creative with how we did that, but I was satisfied with the way that it turned out. So, you'll see that. And there's a whole section of that pro-social skills, and you'll be able to see how specific it is, much more specific. The other piece I didn't mention is that teachers have been frustrated with the limited amount of space that they have to write a comment. So we quadrupled the amount of space for English language arts, and we tripled it for the other content areas, because they really want to be able to write a narrative to parents about, it's not just about the grades or the performance indicators, it's also about how your child is doing and keeping up and what their strengths are. We want to tell you about he or she as a learner, and teachers are really interested in writing that information.
Is there any way, or has Common Core ever spoken about ways that students can evaluate their school or their teacher, like create a report card where the students can, grade their teachers or grade the school in general? Is there any way or any conversations around how?
Some schools are using those tools. They're available, they're online, and there are schools that are using those tools to get feedback. We have several schools using a 21st century grant that we have for expanded learning time, and many schools are using those kinds of tools to sort of help them know where they're doing well and to get feedback from students. So this, at least for that particular grant in those 4 schools that we're working with, they encourage them to seek that kind of feedback. So that's a very important piece.
I don't think we've rolled that out full scale at this point across all schools, but I know a couple of classes at the high school do it, but that's unique to the teacher wanting the feedback, but it's not universal.
Mrs. Seward?
So on page 4 on the top slide, it talks about standards-based grading. Do students actually get to test to mastery, or do they get to do assignments to mastery, or is it kind of progressive?
So when you say progressive, say a little more about that.
So are you being, on a particular unit, are you being tested throughout the unit? Or if you don't do well in a certain section, are you able to test again to mastery?
So the assumption is that you have the opportunity to redo and retake.
Okay.
And so that's the sort of reteaching that we're doing with our educators, is that giving the opportunities to do it over, to try again. I have a great little video I'm going to show at the President's Council on April 11th. It actually is about riding a bike, but it shows about how you have to practice and get better. And so that's what needs to happen. We need teachers to adopt that in their classrooms as well.
So if you think about it, instead of what you currently do is, and the students will tell you this, you study a section, you take a test, that's done, you move on to the next section, you take another test, that part's done. This is just accumulative. You keep rolling and scaffolding back up and down so that you ultimately master all of those skills. But it may not be that you didn't master it in that first test, but by the time the end of the term came, yes, you could master that test too. So that it's not just looking at single points of time for grades. It's really looking over the term, what have you been progressing and where have you come to in terms of knowing what you need to know in that standard.
Thank you.
In some school districts, they actually call them retakes. The kids start to learn the language of. I made a request to my teacher for a retake. So once students get really invested too, even at a young age, in their own learning and in their own mastery, that's when I think that we will know that we achieve the outcomes we really want to.
And as we expand, I think, our inclusive practices, we're trying to stretch the idea that students take in information different ways, students represent it back in different ways, and that it's okay for this student to do a video presentation because maybe they can't get up in front of that class and do a oral presentation. or to actually build a structure to illustrate whatever it is that they needed to do. So we're really pushing that agenda. I'm seeing it more at the lower and middle grades, but I know ultimately it's getting to the high school because the kids coming up are going to push that agenda that this is what they're used to having, and they're going to expect it when they get to the high school. So unfortunately for those who are already there, it's going to take a while to get there, but I see the kids who are coming up now that have been in inclusive classrooms saying, hey, I'm not going back to a resource room. You need to figure it out because I'm here now, and this is how I'm used to learning. So in high school has really started to pick that up, and I'm seeing much more of that happening in the 9th and 10th grade, and I'm hoping the 11th and 12th is going to edge it up. Okay, so there will be ongoing discussions about this, I'm sure.
Mr. Gonzalez?
So I have a question about the portal. So you said it's going to be very easy accessible for the parents to look at the grades and look at comments. Is it going to be the same for the parents? Are they able to maybe reply to the teachers of any comments through the
Yes,
portal?
they'll be able to have the option, I believe, to send an email, you know, immediately if they have something they want to comment back or they want to question, you know, a particular quiz or assessment or a classwork grade, because that's the other thing. All of the assignments will be categorized. Is this a piece of classwork? Was this homework? Was this, you know, a unit test, or was it just a quiz? They will be able to, you know, put them in a category. So parents will have that information as well, and they can communicate right back with the teacher. And I think in this age of technology being what it is and people's schedules and being busy, parents will appreciate not having to leave work to maybe, you know, have a check-in with the teacher and to be able to do it in that quick kind of format. And then if a meeting is needed, they can schedule that too. But I think increasing the communication is the goal that we're looking for here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that is secure, just so you know, that parents have a password, that they have access, and students have their own password to check things also.
Member Mora?
So I know you guys mentioned that GPAs would still remain something at the high school level.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering, how does it factor in with this standards-based grading? If you need to calculate for a GPA, would that mean that the standard-based letter grades would just be equivalent to the traditional A, B, C, D?
It's not equivalent.
Yeah,
it's a more complicated algorithm than that, and the team has been discussing it. We brought on a consultant to work with us the last 2 years who does this work all over the country and was one of the folks that actually developed a lot of the back end of Power School. So we feel good about the fact that he knows it and understands it and is helping us to learn about it. So GPA came up because that's important to folks at the high school moving on to college and what that is. So that probably won't go away even if the high school decides to join us in this mission and move to standards-based grading. And I think that's why it was important to the folks at the middle schools that we provide some kind of a percent or percentile to kids in 7th and 8th grade that will be moving on to high school for their high school decisions. The high schools are not, because our report cards have been what they are, arbitrary letter grades, the high schools don't, in terms of admissions, our high school and others, they haven't put as much weight on give me your report card and let me see if that's a reason for admission, because they know about the arbitrary nature. I think that our high schools are going to very much appreciate having a standards-based report card to look at the end of a term, because they're going to have all kinds of information about how a student is doing strength-wise and where the needs are, and they can very quickly plan for what that student needs to have in terms of any tutoring or any accelerated courses that they may need to have also. Much more information. I don't know if Joni has passed out the sample to you yet, but once you get the sample of the report card and you see it, then you'll know. The other thing that she has for you is a copy of our frequently asked questions. That's currently running as a, you can click here on the banner of the, in the website that's announcing our meeting on April 11th at President's Council, and there's an opportunity for parents to click to get the frequently asked questions in English and Spanish. So that's there for you too. And if you have any other questions, you can always email me or give me a call at the office, and I'm happy to get back to you if that's okay.
Back to James's question, that's why the high school is taking its time to evolve, because you have a different situation where you have weighted courses because of the AP or the college prep or just general track or general course. And certain courses do count towards it, some don't. So they really are making sure that that's all laid out well so that it doesn't impact anyone in terms of GPA and graduation.
Anyone else? I stepped out. The sample was really great to see. So, I know it may sound like a silly question, but who's going to get it? Who's going to have this specific report card?
So for third term, which is, we started on March 12th, we're in our third trimester. The Weatherby School is piloting the new report card in all grades K through 8. All of the teachers have participated in a day of training, and they are currently working in their grade book around the new standards.
So for this third term, just the Weatherby?
Just the Weatherby School.
And then, starting next year?
We are waiting, when the new superintendent arrives, we'll kind of figure out how we're going to roll out across the district.
Great. School member Mariano.
Just one more question, Dr. Toomey. How are the parents, you may have alluded to that in your presentation, how are the Weatherby parents informed about this, and how has there been any workshops?
We provided a backpack home letter in English and Spanish to all of the families to explain what was happening before the term started and let them know how really integral the team, the curriculum team at Weatherby was in helping to support the work group and get things going. Weatherby, we feel, has been at the standards work maybe even a little bit longer than some of our other schools, so there was a real readiness there for that to happen, and the families have been very supportive. After the President's Council meeting on the 11th, I will also be scheduling a morning and an evening meeting for any interested Weatherby parents to come, and we'll be doing a similar presentation over at Weatherby, but up close and personal for those parents at Weatherby.
Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mary.
Very welcome. Thank you.
We have one more item on the agenda, which is a quick update from Anne Marie Stronach on where we're at with our MSBA projects and which are moving forward and which may be about completed.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the school committee, and thank you for taking the time to hear about the projects in the MSBA that we have currently. I want to just start out by giving you just a quick little, I know some of you are new to this, and I just kind of want to give you a quick little rundown. There are two actual projects that are funded by the MSBA. One is the accelerated repair projects. The other is a core project. We have projects in both of those. I'm going to start out with the accelerated repair projects. They are basically roofs, boilers, windows. We currently have this building that just got a new boiler. We just finished it. We just closed out the project last week. That project was anticipated to cost $1.5 million. In actuality, because of the work done by the city council and the mayor and the aggressive schedule we put forward, because when we go to city council, we fund the projects fully right away so that we can put out our RFPs before other projects are coming on board. Because of that, our actual bids came in at 1.3, which we were pretty excited about, and the MSBA covered 80% of that. So the MSBA paid a little over $1 million, and the school's contribution was $286,000, with coming in under budget by about close to $30,000, $29,700 or something like that. So that project is done. While we have a new heating system, the heating system still doesn't address the HVAC, so there's still some control issues in terms of some rooms getting more heat than other rooms, but that is an HVAC system different than the boiler. So I point that out because sometimes when you put in a new boiler, people think all the heating problems are going to go away. It also doesn't address the air condition. That's a cooling system as a part of the HVAC. So that project just finished. We went out for bid for that project in 2016, so that kind of gives you an idea of how long that these take from the time we put in the application till the time of completion with accelerated repairs. Keeping in the theme of accelerated repairs, last April, 2017, we submitted 3 projects for consideration by the MSBA. We were fortunate enough to get picked for all 3 of those projects, so we are putting a new roof on this building, and that is not going to be done until summer 2019. We're going to be putting in a new roof and a new boiler at the Arlington complex. Obviously, with these repair projects, even though the heating systems aren't completely finished in terms of solving every ill in the building, the efficiencies that are put into these are going to have long-lasting savings on the facilities that these are happening in. So we're really excited about that. In the project at the Arlington School, that's going to be done this summer, and we're doing both of those projects at the same time. So the roof repair and the boiler will be done this summer. Therefore, there will be no activities at all in that building this summer. Typically, we have many programs running in there. We're going to be moving those off sites, and as we get well thought out in our summer programs, you'll be getting more information about those. But just so you know, the Arlington School will be completely offline this summer. We've already worked with the partners in the neighborhood to do the latchkey and things like that, because I know that people depend on that building in the summertime. So we've already started those outreach conversations, so I want to assure you of that. That project, both of those projects combined are $4 million, 1.5 for the boiler, 2.5 for the roof. We're in the process. The accelerated repairs, those bid projects, the MSBA has a list of providers, so we don't necessarily go out to bid. We do our own contracts within the city, but that helps speed up the process. The North Common roof is a $4 million project, and again, I can't thank the mayor and the city council enough for all the support, because this is a tremendous amount of resources that they're investing into the schools. Again, we're very fortunate in this district to get 80% reimbursement. That's the maximum amount that you can get. If you go to our surroundings communities, they're getting 50, 57, 58. So we are right now at 80%. That could change depending on, because they revisit that every year, but that is the reimbursement rate currently. Then we have 2 core projects. A core project could be a renovation or a rebuild. We put in the Oliver School in April 2016, and we're fortunate enough to get approved for the eligibility phase. That eligibility phase finalized this January, and we were just go back to the MSBA after we submit all that work to get into the what they call the feasibility phase. In the feasibility phase, we will be getting a project manager on board as well as a architect. Once the architect comes on board, then we will go into the schematic design, and then once all that stuff comes into play, we'll be going out into the community to find out what the community is looking for in terms of educational components in that building, site locations, and those kind of things. So you'll be hearing a lot about that. We just got accepted into the feasibility on February 14th. So that's just kicking off. And that feasibility schematic design usually takes about 2 years, and then construction's another year. So that school could open up in 2021, 2022, in that time frame, if we keep on this accelerated track that we're on. I do want to mention that with the Oliver School project, we're very excited. There's a lot of intensive work that goes into the eligibility phase. One of those things is the enrollment capacity. It has to do with the development that's going on in the community, projects that are coming online, housing, and all those things. Currently, the Oliver Partnership School is about 500 students. This new school, they gave us an enrollment capacity of 1,000 students. So that's very exciting news for us, because while we'll still have the other buildings open, it's going to open up 500 well-needed seats in that area of the city, which is where we're having the most trouble keeping up with the influx of students into our schools. And then last year, in April of 2017, we went back to the MSBA and asked for another core project, and that was the Leahy School. We just got voted into that eligibility phase in December. I will tell you, they were a little concerned about us having two school projects built at the same time. We feel that the capacity is there to do that, and the need is very great. So we were very fortunate. I just want you to know that every year the number of schools vary in terms of how many applications MSBA got, but they do a very small percentage. So to have this kind of support from the MSBA has a lot to do with the support from the community, the support from City Council, and the former school committee as well. And yourselves in the upcoming phases will be important. So that project has the feasibility, eligibility phase does not start until May. It's a 270-day, and we will be giving them our final in December of next school year. So that hopefully will be completed, and then we'll be invited into the feasibility stage for the Leahy School. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Great. There's so much of the MSBA stuff going on, and I'm sure I've seen your whiteboard. There's a lot of stuff on that. Can you just do it, just so that we all have it for personal reference, just send us an email with like what roof's being done, what windows?
Yep, I'll give you the white page that I gave you the last time and update it with the new projects on it and give you the new numbers for North Common. That's done.
Yeah, awesome. The two things that I want to point out, because I was new to this process, and we hadn't applied in the longest time for no real reason, and so they were actually excited about getting us into the MSBA program.
Yes, they were.
A lot of other communities with a lot less need than us have been getting benefited from the program, is that, you know, we went after the real crucial stuff, and clearly we spent a lot of time in the wintertime here, so we got all these boilers done. We did try to get AC at the HVAC over at the Arlington. They do not do ACs.
They do not do HVAC at all.
They don't see it as a part of the learning program. They see the heat is, but the other thing is not. So they just don't do it. I think that somebody just needs to make the case to them to do that, because we are in school a lot longer into the winter time, into the summertime, and we actually start still sometimes being in the summertime. The second thing I want to say is we do have building committees. In the building committee, there's a bunch of people on the building committees that are wrote by state law, and there has to be somebody who has different qualifications as purchasing for the Commonwealth, and you know, a teacher, somebody from the building, like all these things that are in there. And there is a member of the school board that's assigned to it.
Yes,
for the Oliver School, it's Adley Gonzalez is
That's correct.
The representative.
You replaced Joe Robles.
Exactly. And what we're planning to do, because, you know, she basically taught in that building and ran in that building for most of the time she was in the school system, is to do Pat Mariano at the Leahy when that comes due. That's also, I mean, we just started doing meetings, but there's going to be such a long time for community input. And if folks, there's other positions on the panel too, if other folks really want to be on the board, just give me a holler and we'll try to figure something out.
I would also say when we go to do these outreach meetings, when we have the community partner, your voice is going to be very important, as well as the people who have been attending these meetings. But the community portion is going to be really big as to what you want to see in your new school. It is a criteria that MSBA takes very seriously, and we're looking forward to having those conversations.
Yeah, and even though we didn't get funding for ACs last year, we did spend, I want to say last year, we did spend a lot of time and money on ACs in your house work differently than ACs in buildings like this. They have like a some antifreeze in it. It's called glycol.
Yep.
I didn't know anything about it. It's green and nasty. And so
very expensive as well.
Almost all of the AC issues, all the ACs across the district were needing new glycol in their systems or didn't have any at all, and that helped out a bunch of stuff. That's how we got the high school back up, and places like that. So we are, even though we don't get the funding when it's crucial stuff like that, the city side is definitely stepping in on doing that. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Great.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
You too.
And then the last piece was, you had asked about scheduling a budget workshop. I've put through a couple of dates there if people have availability on those days. I just need to know which one works better. I know it's a tight time frame. We waited until after we had all our budget meetings, so we have a good sense of where we're at. And we also have to have a budget prepped and ready for about the 11th of April so that we can hold our public hearing at the end of April. So the timeline is a little tight, so I'm leaving it up to your discretion about which day works.
Do people feel they can make a decision on that day tonight, or do you want to go back? I'm ready for it tonight, too. Anybody want to wait? All right. April 2nd.
I mean, these are coming quick. They're Monday and Tuesday, so.
Oh, they're next week.
Yes. We're April already.
Jumping Jehoshaphat. The 3rd works for me, but I'm not in need of the workshop.
I can't do the 3rd. I can only do the 2nd.
Everybody wants to do the 2nd?
2nd, yeah.
All right, 2nd it is.
Monday, okay, Monday the 2nd, and we'll meet.
Remember Maura, can you make that? Okay. Everybody good?
And we'll meet at the school department offices.
Yeah, on Essex Street. 255, 237.
You need to go in 255 until our elevator's
Yeah.
done. So go in 255 and we'll ship you up to our offices.
Great.
Thank you.
Before we do questions, I just want to make sure, I had them put up the website where it has all our names and email addresses. I think it might be good because this is going to go on TV. You can't really see that. I thought you could probably see it better. Maybe we can just go down the aisle and everybody give whatever contact information they want to be reached out. Again, it's videotaped, so it goes on loop on the school department channel. So if you got an email or a phone number you want to give out to parents and folks listening, please say it slow and repeat it once so that everybody knows what you're doing. How about, you want to start with you, Member Maura?
My name is James Mora. You can reach me at jamesxvm@gmail.com. That's jamesxvm@gmail.com. Also at 786-491-6855. That's 786-491-6855.
My name is Adderley Gonzalez, and you can reach me at ADDERLY09@msn.com. And if you could text me at 978-902-4926 or call me.
Marianella Rivera, and you can contact me at rivera.nella@gmail.com. That's rivera.nela@gmail.com. Or you could call me or text me at 978-566-1370. Again, that number is 978-566-1370.
My name is Alyssa Salas, and you can email me at alyssa.salas@gmail.com, double E in the beginning, so EELISSA.SALAS.
I'm Dan Rivera, and I'm at mayorrivera@cityoflawrence.com, and that's MAYORRIVERA@cityoflawrence.com. My cell phone is 978-985-5143.
My name is Pat Mariano. My email is patricia.mariano@verizon.net. My cell phone is 978-265-5208.
Donna Bertolino, you can email me at dbertolino2000@yahoo.com.
Stacy Seward, you can email me at sseward00@gmail.com or text or call me at 978-494-0706.
Great.
And then any questions we have before we wrap up?
Can we just add to, I know that we're going to add a bunch of stuff to the next month's agenda. Can we also have just an overview of the teacher's contract?
Sure.
Because I know
Absolutely.
that a lot of work went into getting us a teacher's contract. And since we have one and it's been ratified by the union.
And I know they were working on the document, so it's just about ready.
Member Salas.
Also, just a reminder that there will be a meeting April 4th here with the board that is selecting a superintendent. I just want to remind folks that that process is also happening.
Do we know what time that's at?
6 o'clock, yeah.
6 o'clock here. Great. Anything else? It's all you, Madam Superintendent.
Thank you. Then we will adjourn this meeting. Have a good evening.